Welcome back to SWAYAM course on design thinking and innovation. We are in week 14, the tool section. We are actually looking at usability studies to get us feedback and then iteratively redesign your solution. So it's section T14, week 14. So we'll start with observation. What is observation? It's a method for collecting data or information about the design solution. Okay, it can be done either by the designer looking at how the user is actually using it, or by the user before using, after using, or while using the product or the service. So if you look at observation by the designer, he is actually watching the user interact with the design solution or the prototype, okay, and he documents, okay, either taking notes or a video or photo record of this while doing the observation. Okay, so yeah, for example, it could be children playing with a newly designed toy, or the elderly operating a mobile phone designed for them. Okay, so you actually observe and take notes and get feedback, and that serves as a information to either change your design or make modifications in it. Okay, the same thing can be done by observation by the user. Okay, that means that he can do it just by looking at the product or the service before using it, or while using it, or after using it. Okay, so if you look at it before using the product, okay, can identify many of its characteristics. For example, how it looks, what are its affordances, whether he is able to read it, okay, whether it conveys a feeling of comfort, what are its expression, etc. Many of them are visual features if you look at it. Okay, and while using the product, it can reveal its usefulness, ease of use, comfort while using, how interactive it is, skills required for using it, and the human factors involved in it. Okay, and you can document the whole process. Okay, so the designer takes notes or video or photograph while the user is doing the observation. Okay, and examples are newly designed sustainable food container or the controls for a solar powered fan. So if you look at the steps involved in it, first finalize the prototype or the product or the workspace or the service. Give the prototype to the user for observation before using it. Then you give the prototype while it is being used, and then document the feedback before using and while using the prototype. Okay, so that's the part with observation. Okay, so let's move on to conversations. What are conversations? So conversation is again a very simple method of collecting data or information about the design solution by conversing with the user. That means that the conversation is done by the designer while the user is, using the product, discussing various aspects of the design solution. It is helpful to make a list of issues that a designer would like to respond from the user, okay, while he is interacting with the solution. For example, we had mentioned cue cards in week 6. They could be very helpful in this regard. So we are saying that please converse with the user. This is not an interview because we want his answers to be spontaneous. Okay, he should be able to describe what is happening while he is using the product. Okay, for example, the sequence in which he is navigating through the interfaces. Okay, so a natural exchange of these experiences is great because you get spontaneous reactions to the use of the product or the service. Okay, so let's look at it. Okay, it can be done before using the solution, while using the solution, or after using the solution or the prototype. Before using the solution, as we mentioned just like before in observation, it allows you to identify many of its visual features, its expressions, the comfort levels, the affordances, and while using the product or the solution, It can reveal its usefulness, ease of use, comfort, skills, human factors, etc. And after being used the product, it's a nice way to get overall feedback. Okay, so it can reveal its overall characteristics and an overview of the solution. Okay, you need to document it, best to take notes or video or audio record the whole conversation with the user. Examples, for example, he's trying out a newly designed bamboo easy chair or controls for a solar powered insecticide sprayer. Let's look at the steps involved in conversation. First, finalize the prototype and give it to the user. Give the prototype to the user for conversation before using it. Converse with the user while the prototype is being used. Converse with the user after the prototype is used, and document the conversation at every stage of it, either by taking notes or a video or an audio. Let's move on to another very interesting method of getting feedback. It's called as the Think Aloud Protocol. What is it actually? It's very simple. It's a method of collecting again data or information or feedback about the design solution, where the user actually speaks aloud about the interaction while interacting with the solution. He basically says out loud whatever comes into his mind, describing various aspects of the design solution while performing such a task. This was introduced by Clayton Lewis, and it was actually based on an earlier work on protocol analysis by Erickson and Herbert Simon. Okay, so that's the history behind this particular technique. It's a very simple and a useful method. The designer needs to request the user to think aloud about the prototype. This can be done before using the solution, while using the solution, or after using the solution. The user says aloud about the interaction that he has about the solution. The designer can prompt the user to do a certain task or action such that the use of the product is described by the user and the steps that he follows. Okay, and the document of this verbiage of this conversation with the user where he is talking aloud is documented. Okay, so that's very important and serves as a feedback on this. Think Aloud Protocol can reveal its usefulness, ease of use, comfort, skills required, interactivity, human factors, etc. Okay, best way to do it is to take notes or video or audio record while the user is thinking aloud. He basically thinks aloud while trying out anything, newly designed music system or controls for a smart bedroom. So let's look at the steps in the Think Aloud prototype. First, you finalize your prototype, give it to the user and request him to talk about it while he is using it. Okay, so while using the product, before using the product, or after using the product or the prototype, you need to document the whole conversations. Okay, so these are the 5 steps involved in Think Aloud Protocol. Okay, so from there we'll move on to testing. What is usability testing? The difference between conversations and observations and testing is that it's a method to evaluate and measure the characteristics of the prototype. Okay, here you do a measurement, not just getting feedback. So it means that you request the user to use the product and complete specific tasks while the reactions are being documented and measured. Okay, so this could be in terms of its function, ease of use, interactivity, human factors, comfort, aesthetics, etc. Okay, so it's a very careful observation, and documentation can be over a period of time, even by having different users perform similar tasks. So you can take an average of them. The results then can be compared, analyzed to identify issues and problems in the present prototype. Okay, so if you look at it, usability testing is a bit different from observations and conversations, because here you actually use this method to measure things and document things over a period of time, and it can be done with various users using the same prototype, and then you can compare and analyze and come out with what to do. Okay, so yeah, usability testing, what aspect of the characteristic the prototype needs to be tested for usability will definitely depend on the nature of the design solution. For example, these are different examples where usability testing might serve as a very good method for getting feedback. A new chair that needs to be tested for comfort over a period of time. Okay, or a new mobile application needs to be tested for ease of use, navigation, understanding its interface elements, or a newspaper design needs to be tested for readability and navigation. Okay, so these are different examples of it. It's best for the designer to take notes or video or photograph while user is being tested. The recording can be played back to measure timings, navigation, ease of use, etc. The results can be compared, analyzed to identify issues or problems in the present prototype, and then come out with recommendations for improvement. So it could be for any of these. Okay, for example, knob of a door, test it out for ease by the child, elderly, or a person with disability. Wayfinding systems, test it for visibility and readability at different distances. Medicine instructions, test it for readability. Mixer grinding, test it for ease of use by requesting the user to grind something. Mobile for the elderly, test it for use as well as interactivity by requesting them to complete certain tasks. Insecticide sprayer, test for ease and comfort while using and moving it in the field. Okay, so this kind of gives you an idea of where all you can use usability testing. Let's look at the steps. Finalize the prototype, give the prototype to the user and request him to perform a given task. Okay, and the user is observed while performing that task. Measure the variables, could be both quantitative or qualitative while the user is performing the task. Okay, and then repeat the user testing with other users if you want to get more samples. Okay, and compare and analyze the measurements. The recommendations can be taken by for implementing it in the prototype. Okay, so here is shown, for example, 3 final prototypes: concept 1, concept 2, concept 3. Okay, and rated in a scale of 1:5. Okay, the weighted averages are also given because we've given different weight. For example, 15% for ease of use, 15 for look and feel, 15 for being user friendly, 20% for user friendly, 20% for having fewer steps, 30% for use of new technology, and the total is that. Okay, so if you go by the just the weighted averages, okay, you have it in the brackets, right? And if you go for the total scores, they are shown here. Okay, and if you look at the overall picture, okay, concept 2 has the highest score in terms of the regular total scores, that's 22, but also in weighted averages it also scores the highest at 4.5. Okay, so it obviously looks like the concept 2 is the one you need to take forward. Okay, so this is a very simple method of actually using a matrix for evaluation, and you have the weighted averages as well as the regular scores, and then you can make a decision on what to take forward. Okay, now comes the question, how many users should I test it for? Okay, there is no exact figure on this, but roughly for qualitative study the recommended number is between 5 to 10, and quantitative study it can become more. Okay, so you could have from 10 to 20 or even more than that. Which user? Okay, so if you have the user mapping as we've done in week 4, you can actually, the first one should be the primary users followed by the secondary users. So I think they are the ones to be tested first because they would be the most prominent of all the users that you have. Okay, so let's look at the usability studies, overview of it. We started with observations, followed with conversations, then talk aloud prototype and usability testing. Okay, all of them are important. Okay, you should try out at least one of them or all of them, okay, because they are very useful methods for getting feedback on the prototype that you have done. So, thanks a lot for listening. This was section T14 of week 14. Let's look at the summary of the week. We started with the process by defining what is usability studies. Tools explained the different tools, for example, for observation, conversation, think aloud protocol and the usability testing. Apply it in the usability studies in the project and then followed by the case study.